Welcome. I'm Liz Taylor, ocean explorer, naturalist, and entrepreneur.
And I'm Sylvia Earle, National Geographic explorer, founder of Mission Blue, and I am an ocean elder. And thank you, Ocean Elders, for sponsoring this program.
Absolutely. And this is our show, Dive In, where we host informal and open conversations with the ocean community on topics of wonder and interest. We're really glad to be back and hope everyone has made some time to get outdoors. You can ask questions by putting them in the Q&A box during the conversation, and then we'll get to as many as we can towards the end of the show. And we'll also have some links added into the chat for your information. And before we get started, let's remind everyone that
the world is
blue.
Blue. Really, it is.
So today we are very excited to be chatting with Dr. Keisha Bahr. Keisha is the chair for the Coral Reef and Ocean Health at Harte Research Institute, and she is an assistant professor of marine biology at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Yes. She completed her MS and PhD at the University of Hawaii and grew up in landlocked Ohio. Welcome, Keisha.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you. So how did you come to become such an advocate for ocean and corals in particular, starting off in Ohio?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and share my slides and hopefully everyone can see that okay.
We sure can.
Okay, perfect. Because I really like to, like you mentioned, Liz, like one of the craziest things is my journey into the ocean was completely unexpected because I did grow up in a small farm town in Ohio. And this was my view most of the years and most of my time growing up. And, of course it's beautiful, but when I was in high school, I just kind of felt like I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I knew I didn't want to be cold anymore. Which I think is fair. I don't think a lot of people like cold. Some people do.
Yeah, yeah.
But when I was in my high school class, I saw an opportunity to participate in a marine biology course in the next town over. And that included a 1 week trip to Florida, Key Largo.
Beautiful.
And I of course went for Florida to be warm in the middle of the winter there. So I went down to Florida to the Marine Lab, which is in Key Largo, Florida. And it's also where they had the Jules Undersea Lab, the hotel, sunken underwater. So we
Right.
were able to snorkel around that. It was really, really cool to see that people could actually stay in there, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. And
Sleep
in
with the fishes.
yeah, exactly. I didn't actually get a chance to do that like Sylvia, you've done so many times. But it was now they've taken it out of the water, unfortunately. But I was like, that's a really cool experience for people to actually see the ocean, especially if you don't grow up around it and you've never experienced it before. It's
Right.
a great opportunity.
It's that gift of time.
Right,
And
exactly. Yeah. And when I was there, I first stuck my face in the water and I felt like it was a awakening moment, that moment in your life where you'll always remember. And I kind of felt at first I was really excited and then I was really mad because I felt like I didn't know about this underwater world and I felt like someone was keeping it a secret from me.
Mhm.
But then, like, when I heard and I saw corals, immediately when I saw corals, I became obsessed with them. And during that time, they asked us to journal and keep log of what we were feeling or experiencing or seeing. And I went through my journal a couple months ago and I saw that I was so obsessed with coral, I wrote about coral. And as an angry teenager, I said, coral is so beautiful and we are ruining it. So I was
Yeah,
very passionate about it from a really early age.
that's great. That's like the call to action that is this really can be galvanizing.
It's the
Right.
call of the wild.
Call of the wild, call of the sea.
Yeah, the angry teenager's voice.
That's right. Well, we need more of that, especially right now.
Well, think
Yeah,
about it, Keisha. Throughout all the history of humankind, we've been around for some 300,000 years, with most of our fast growth in the last 10,000 years, and I would say mostly in the last 200 years. But it's only now, literally, that we have the capacity to see what's under the surface for more than what you can see without a face mask holding your breath.
Right.
That's not very much of the ocean, and it still isn't. We're still mostly relying on information gathered by those who can use scuba and get a few feet, maybe 150 feet or so, 50 meters. But then this is the ocean below
Right.
that. And I think you're really going to share research about creatures that tend to live in the illuminated part of the sea. But I hope you'll also share some of your insights about those that live in the dark, or at least in dim light.
Dim light, yeah.
Well, or
Dim light.
dark.
Yeah.
Some of the greatest diversity of life is never feels the touch of sunshine.
No, sure don't.
And I think that's the hard part about it is that if you don't see it, if you don't experience it, then you don't know. Because the ocean is such a concealing medium that if you just see it, you don't think there's all this life down there. And I think for me, that was that moment where I needed to be able to see what's underneath. And then once I saw what's underneath, I wanted to keep seeing more. And I think that's something that's probably shared across a lot of marine biologists and oceanographers that you want to keep seeing everything because there's so much we don't know, like you were saying,
That's right.
Sylvia.
Yeah. And then so the trip to the Key Largo led you on to
Yeah, so after that, I went back actually to my small town and told my family that I wanted to live underwater and become a marine biologist. And they said, "Well, we don't know what that is." And I said, "I don't either." But if you want to live underwater, you need to be able to breathe air. So they
correct.
sent me to scuba school, and I was the only person in my class because it was the middle of winter. And did all my training in a quarry in Ohio, and I was freezing. I felt like this bottom photo here that I was so cold, I was shaking just holding my regulator in my mouth.
Oh
But
yeah,
no,
it's just the
yeah,
worst.
yeah, that was the last cold dive I did, by the way.
If you can do that, you can dive anywhere.
Pretty much. That's what we tell people about Monterey. If we train you for Monterey, you're good to go anywhere.
I know I still need to do Monterey, but I think I need to do it with like a 7 mil on or maybe a dry suit.
We can
But
help you. Yeah.
so after I, completed my high school training, I was the first person in my family to go to college, and I decided that if I needed to, to become a marine biologist, I needed to go where the ocean was. So I started out at the University of South Florida in St. Petersburg, such a beautiful campus and
Mhm.
Yeah.
amazing place. And I did a couple years there, and then I felt like I wanted to dive more and get more experience. I originally went to Florida because I felt like that was still close enough to my family where it wasn't taking such a big jump.
Correct.
So then I decided, well, I might as well jump in feet first and go to Hawaii. Why not?
All the way.
All the way, all the
All
way.
the
Yeah,
way.
exactly. So I was very fortunate to conduct my bachelor's there, and then I also went on to do my graduate training there as well. I worked with amazing mentors at the time. My undergraduate mentor was Holly Putnam, and she was in Ruth Gates' lab, and she got me even more addicted to corals. And then during graduate school, I worked at the Hawaii Institute of Marine Biology and worked with Paul Joe Keel, who really laid the foundation of what we know about corals and coral bleaching and how
Yeah.
corals grow. And I just was so fascinated by understanding these complex, small animals and how they can construct these huge structures that you can see from space. But they were so fragile and really understanding that complexity of them. It was intoxicating.
Yeah. Yeah. They're so incredible. We just really do take them for granted and all the services they provide.
Yeah. And it's challenging because, during my training, the more I learned about corals, the more I was like interested to see more corals. So I had the really unique opportunity for after I finished my PhD to work with NOAA and go on a couple of their research cruises to some of the most remote places. So I
Mhm.
just wanted to share some of those photos because I think that a lot of us think that coral reefs are just in certain places or if you see one, they all look the same. So I wanted to share some of those photos so that people can see that there are amazing places that a lot of people don't get to go, but they are also still being impacted by us
Mhm.
here on land. So the first place I always like to show this because, well, obviously I'm in Texas now, but when I was in Hawaii, I lived there for about 14 years, and I
Mhm.
had the
Great.
unique opportunity to go up to the northwestern Hawaiian Islands or the Papahanaumokuakea National Marine Monument.
Mhm.
And I originally went up to help out with the shark team, but I quickly switched over to the coral team, which was way better than the shark team, in my opinion.
Well, it used to be a really sharky place, but so many have been stripped away in the last 30, 40 years that, they used to tell me going underwater, watch out. You should be afraid of the
Right,
sharks. Now, I'm afraid if I don't see the sharks.
right.
So many have been, taken away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's changed so much.
yeah, but this
It's
is
the
Midway Island or somewhere in
This was Cure, just,
there.
showing a
okay.
It's
photo.
even further out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of people think like, all of the Hawaiian Islands are, still very dramatic and mountainous. But, here, these are the old islands. The atolls have sunken over time, and they're just the colors of blue that you see up in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands is, I don't think I've
Hmm.
ever seen anywhere else. And it's such a beautiful, magical place to experience. And I feel very fortunate to be able to say I've gone there.
Hmm.
Like opals.
They really are. They're so
Right.
beautiful.
Right. And then, of course, as we know, on land, and Sylvia, as you've been up there at Midway, and we spent some time at Midway too, it was amazing to be able to see Wisdom and all of the other albatross at this time. They were fledging when we were there, and
Oh,
just the amount of trash
I'm
on.
just looking. Yeah, I mean that lower picture there with the chicks, and it's just like this sea of fishing floats, looks like, and debris and
yeah.
plastic everywhere.
They're not planted there as an art exhibit.
No.
There's something like 80% of the trash in the ocean comes from industrial and a lot of it high seas fishing,
Hmm.
where they're just miles of long lines. And well, drift nets were allegedly prohibited from the high seas back in 1992, but that hasn't stopped them
No.
in coastal waters. And entanglement is a big deal with so many creatures. You probably witnessed some of that where you were out there.
Yeah,
Bird.
it is very shocking. It was actually pretty traumatizing when you saw the chicks were eating plastic, or if there was one that, died, unfortunately, its stomach was full of plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's terrible for the corals too. I mean, we've seen with ROV and submersible diving, we've seen some of these big nets. Yeah, it's like you never want to see those things when you're down there with the underwater vehicle, but you could just see them just sort of
Right,
sawing through the reef because
right.
they're so durable. Some of them have like a steel member in them, or they're made out of the aqua steel and this kind of stuff. And it just cuts right through the reef over time from the wave motions.
And breaks down into little bitty pieces that
Yeah,
get ingested
Yep.
with the corals.
it's
Yeah, of
incredibly
course.
damaging.
And I think that's the part about all of this is like this is hundreds of miles from the nearest people, right? In the
Hmm.
middle of the ocean, like one of the most remote places you can be, and we still see that there's a huge impact that we're having. This trash, like you mentioned, is not coming from Hawaii. It's coming from other places. And it's on the beaches, it's impacting, everything on land, but it's also impacting everything on the reef and in the deeper sea as well.
Hmm.
But of
But
course, I don't, we want to focus on hope here. But when I was
Right.
there, like you mentioned, the underwater scene was just incredible. Just seeing corals for hundreds of yards, and of course, dolphins and large fish, and just bright colors was amazing to be able to witness that. And as you mentioned, Sylvia, like when I was there, we were doing our safety stop off of Cure, and
hmm,
just waiting, and I start looking around and I just start seeing all these little silver shadows around us.
Look at
And this
those
video is
guys.
like 15 years old, so I apologize, it's a little pixelated, but I think at that time, this is my first time I ever swam with sharks. and seen sharks underwater. And I was so nervous. And then I felt a level of comfort after I saw them that like I felt like I was a part of their ecosystem now and that like
Mhm.
we were sharing this space and this energy together. And it was just
Mhm.
it was amazing.
Occasionally they'll take a little bite out of one of us, but when you think how many bites we take out of them, I think I don't want to be the recipient, but on the other hand, they're allowed. It's their world.
Yeah, for
Mm.
sure. And I always say there's no shark attacks, but there are occasional fish bite accidents.
Yeah,
Because they do. Sometimes they mistake us for something that might be edible, and they have the unfortunate habit of sort of like tasting things first, see.
right.
And we're just kind of soft and squishy, so
Well, they've been
fragile.
around for hundreds of millions of years, and we are really new arrivals. We're not on their menu. Maybe they could be if enough of us spend time in the ocean.
Especially for this, like, these sharks up here in the Northwest Hawaiian Islands, like they're not used to seeing people either. And
No.
it was just, they didn't pay us any mind when we were there. Like they were curious and that was it. But it's like one of those moments where you kind of think about the snapshot in time. And this is one of the photos I took, and I joke all the time because I'm like, this is the real Sharknado, not the movie.
Yeah.
This is like this is what a healthy reef, a healthy coral reef ecosystem looks like, having sharks there,
Yes,
Yeah.
the ocean needs the sharks.
right?
Yeah, they put nutrients back. They munch on various things, but the nutrients go back that power the phytoplankton. And I suppose there are other things that nibble on what sharks put back into the ocean as well. It's a food source.
Yeah.
And it's the way the living ocean functions. It's not just water.
Right.
Yeah. People say, do you know what fish do in the ocean?
Well, just having those really intact reef systems are so important because we see, like where the reefs are closer to shore and people have gotten to the point because we've taken so many of the bigger fish. Now they're taking the fish that are really critically important, like the parrotfish,
Right.
that really keep the reefs healthy. And in their absence, everything starts to unravel.
Yes. Where is
Yeah.
this? What are you showing us on this?
Oh, so that was, obviously my Northwestern Hawaiian Islands experience. And then after that, I was really fortunate to be able to go with NOAA to conduct some of their long-term monitoring at the Northern Marianas. And
Oh, fantastic.
it was such a beautiful system too, just flying into Guam and then Saipan and making our way up to the Northern Marianas. And it just completely different from the island chain that we saw in Hawaii.
Hmm.
And we went, of course, to Mog. And before we got in for our first dive, I was with the NOAA team, and they're like, "Okay, before you dive in, if you hear any creaking or you feel shaking underwater, come to the surface." And I go, "Oh, okay, why?" And then they're like, "Well, it's an active chain still, so there might be a volcanic eruption. So, just be aware of that." And they're like, "Okay, and dive."
Yeah. Amazing.
But
And this,
obviously made it out okay.
yeah. This area right now is kind of right in the path of our strongest super typhoon for this year,
Yeah.
bearing down on
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. And I still have friends and colleagues out here doing amazing work in these systems too. And I hope that, yeah, I hope it's not too terrible, but everything's getting more intense and more frequent,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
It's truly exceptional that you've had the opportunity to see what most humans in all of our history have never had a chance to see. I mean, eat your heart out, Marco Polo.
That's right.
Check out Keisha Bahr.
And that's why I feel so fortunate. And I, wanted to, like, through our conversation, share some of this, of course, in the Pacific, and then, of course, moving back to the Gulf. But like, I think it's really important for people to understand that coral reefs are everywhere in all different shapes and sizes, shallow and deep, and they're all really unique. Especially here in Mog, there's CO2 seeps that come from the floor. So we would joke that we were essentially swimming in a champagne glass. And when we were there, I saw the largest coral I've ever seen in my entire life that is
Wow.
growing right next to where the CO2 seep is occurring.
Magnificent. Look at that.
What a beast.
It's a coral mountain.
And I'm just like this, and it kept going forever and ever. And, I'm just like, oh, wow, I never thought corals could get this big.
That's incredible.
Think of how long it has taken for those little guys to generate such a massive formation and how vulnerable it is to our actions. Yeah. Well, good luck for you to be able to see there and document it and then share the view.
Yeah. Does that do the researchers that are still there, do they send you sort of little updates on this coral?
I haven't gotten any updates. I should ask and reach out or tell them I need to come back and see it for
That's better.
myself.
Yeah, that's the optimal thing. I need to come back and check on this
I'm gonna
guy.
come back. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's really that
exactly.
kind of, monitoring for change over time. I think it's so critical, especially now with all the different impacts increasing in their intensity and so forth, that
Yeah.
we can really tell a lot from, and especially through photographs. You've got these
Right.
photos from
Yeah, this is,
years ago and then kind of
yeah,
comparative analysis today.
Yeah, and I think that's for me, I feel very fortunate to be able to see some of these really remote and beautiful coral reefs and understand and learn about them. And I think what has been really challenging for me is while I've been able to document them and experience them in real life, I've also experienced their decline in a very
Mhm.
fast period of time. So even at this reef, this is a 1 year difference that we've seen in
wow.
decline in corals.
Wow.
We need to reverse that.
Reverse the
Exactly.
trend.
Bring it
Yeah.
Yeah,
back.
exactly. And I think at the time, when I was witnessing these coral bleaching events happening, especially in Hawaii, at the time I was really excited. I was like, wow, we're seeing that all of these corals are responding. It's a visual response, and I'm a scientist and I want to document it. And I felt at the time I was doing my duty as a scientist. I was documenting, I was writing it up, and I was publishing it. And that was my way to communicate the urgency or what was happening, right? That's what I was trained to do. And then when it happened again the next year, I looked to my PhD advisor, Paul, and I said, well, what do we do now? And he's like,
Mhm.
no, we can't do anything. No one's listening to us. And I think for me, it was that moment where I realized, well, maybe people aren't listening to us because we're not talking to them in a way that they can understand what we're saying.
Yeah. The communication piece.
The
It's huge.
communication piece, yeah. You don't have people out there reading publications. I didn't read publications before I went into undergrad, right? Like that's how us as scientists are using, that's our medium for communicating with everyone, but it's not an effective way to communicate. The urgency is not fast enough for the rate of decline that we're seeing with corals right now.
Yeah.
And the images certainly are helpful.
Powerful.
It's
Right.
words really are critically important. Visuals bring it home, but there's nothing like actually seeing what you've seen, experiencing. It's another whole
Yeah.
category of understanding.
And as these reefs decline, we see sort of the related absence of fish. And
Right.
then you get the filamentous algae starts to take over. And
It's two-way street. If you take the fish away, that in coupling with warming and acidification really damage the reefs.
yeah,
Even healthy reefs fall apart if you take all the fish and lobsters and mollusks. It seems as if that's not a coral reef. These are just pieces. But like a city is piece by piece, and all together, it's a city.
Yeah.
And your work documenting the nature of these places, really, it's so important.
yeah,
But you're right. If it's just the beginning, losing the corals, the 3D architects and the infrastructure of this city. Once those go, everything else starts to go after that. And that
hmm
was like that was the, I mean, it's a alerting thing, but how do you alert people who do not see this every day, who do not go underwater, who do not have this opportunity to see these places? that, that was the thing I was struggling with. Like, can we take more people into the water? Can we show them? How can we communicate better to be able to raise the awareness and cause some kind of action or some kind of change so that this can slow down or we can stop this altogether? That was my major focus after witnessing multiple bleaching events and then subsequent multiple coral mortalities.
And why we should be concerned. People, if they don't see it, if they don't understand it, it's hard for them to care.
Right.
Just again, the connection between ocean health and human existence, let alone our health.
Yeah.
Right.
We just take the ocean for granted, but we
Yeah.
can do more.
It's true enough. We used to always be admonished to get some little, cut or scrape or scratch. And my grandmother would say, oh, go down to the beach, go get in the ocean, it'll heal faster. And now you have to worry, like, you go into some little cut or scratch, you're going to come out and get like flesh-eating bacteria. Like, what's that all about? It's just crazy.
Yeah. And like after dealing with this, I think most of the time, like this is a tragedy for me, of course, because I'm so obsessed with corals. I had to think about a way to move beyond science, like of course do really great science, but also be able to use that science to create some type of change or some kind of action or response, right? And for me, I'm realizing, of course, that as a biologist, you can't just talk to other biologists and you can't talk to your study animal. Like you need to talk to
No,
people. People are part of this conversation. They're part of the solution. They're part of the problem, but we're also part of the solution, of course.
100%.
And
Yeah,
that, sorry,
fish
and
can't fix it. They didn't cause the problem either.
and
There's Ed Hart.
yeah, and I was gonna, say like that's what led me to Harte, because traditionally when we think about academia and professors, we're focusing on these mechanisms or these like really high level or really small questions that we have versus like how do we take science and actually create action. And that's
Right.
what's really unique about Harte is that it is the Harte model of using science and integrating that with the people and the policy and economics to actually create change. And that's what's really appealing to me is because we're moving beyond just generating data. We're moving to generating data to create solutions.
Yeah, and it's such an impactful institution. When we did the Sustainable Seas expeditions, and we spent a lot of time, visiting the different reefs and things in the Gulf of Mexico, and then it went way beyond that. And it was way beyond just the coast of Texas and Louisiana and the Flower Garden banks. It became multinational, and it was that really extending hands across borders and bringing people together that was so
Belize,
impactful.
yeah, to Belize and
Belize and Mexico, even a little there was a little side trip to Cuba by some of the researchers. So it was just really incredible to see that level of collaboration and cooperation around looking at some of the reefs and even the coral spawning events, and it was really incredible.
yeah, I think in most universities you get various departments here and there that don't communicate,
Mhm.
but by putting policy and conservation, the kind of science that you do, all in one under one roof, and it's magic. I mean, you talk with your buddies who have expertise in a wholly different area, but it
Right.
all relates.
Yeah. And that's important because most of the time us scientists are not very good at talking to each other, let alone
That's
talking to
true
other
enough.
people. But when you put us in a building and you force us to talk together, then we do it. So,
Yeah. But I mean, just think of the subject, the subject matter you have there to work with. It's this incredible body of water there. It's, 600,000 square miles or 1.6 million kilometers and
Mhm.
borders all these different countries. And it's just,
It's a microcosm for the world.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what Ed Hart's vision was when he, donated the funds to establish the Harte Research Institute was to make sure that the Gulf was there for future generations. And of
Hmm.
course, like my work is outside the Gulf and also inside the Gulf. And we have tried to live up to, that ambition that he has. And And I think that that's a really great model for moving forward of how do we get people to understand the decline that we're seeing, not just in coral reefs, but in all these different ecosystems. And
Mhm.
how do we create change through the science that we're doing at the same time?
Yeah.
So glad to see that picture. That's great.
Yeah.
There
And
you go.
sorry, that's what I was just going to say. And I think that's for me where I kind of completed the circle of what I wanted to do. I figured out I wanted to be a marine biologist and became a coral biologist. And then I figured out, okay, how do I want to create change in the world instead of just documenting the decline of coral reefs that
Mhm.
we're seeing? And I felt like if I kept, documenting and understanding these mechanisms of these different types of impact, whether it's warming or acidification or sediment, and looking at the responses of why do some respond a certain way and some respond a different way, that was like only half of the circle. And I didn't feel like I was really completing or doing service to not only corals, but the people who depend on them, which is,
Mhm.
all of us depend on them.
Yeah.
And I felt like at Heart, this helps complete that circle. So we're trying to use all this information, especially my research group is taking that and actually creating solutions. So how can we use this information for restoration techniques, or what does this mean when we involve the people who are involved in these islands that we work in, and what kind of policies can we enact? How can we make a difference? So this is a way
Mhm.
that we can connect impact and response to solutions and engagement to create change as well.
Yeah. It's measurable change. You can really document the impact, and I think that's what really gives people not only hope, but it gives them real determination that there
Right.
are things that they can help to change the trajectory.
Right. And I think that's one of the thing, it's really hard working in a system that is disappearing so fast
Yeah.
because there is a lot of pessimism or, you see a lot of death. And I think that's the hard thing about it is how do you help share optimism when all you see is decline, right? So I think that having some solutions to these problems that we're seeing and reorienting the way that we think about this decline can actually create change instead of people just feeling hopeless. Like, oh, it's too big,
Mhm.
I can't do something about it.
Yeah. I mean, we see even, we get people that come into our little dive shop, and of course we have all the reef safe sun skin products and so forth. And I'll have people come in and they're like, oh, I'm not a diver. I don't do snorkeling. I don't do this, that, or the other thing. I'm like, well, what activities do you do? And when do you wear sunscreen? Like, oh, I go bicycling. I'm like, what happens when you take a shower? Where do
Right.
you think it goes? Right down the drain, right out onto the reef. And they really start to think about it. And it's a small thing, but they realize that there are important things they can do just through their consumer choices that can help.
Right. So I thought, coming back to Heart, it would be, coming back to this side of the world, back to the mainland from Hawaii. I thought it was really unique to be able to go from, working in the Pacific and now back to working in the Caribbean and the Gulf. And I think at the time when I moved back, I really thought the only coral reefs that were in the Gulf, I'm admitting this on live podcast. I'm nervous about that. I really just thought about the Florida Keys because that's all
Mhm.
I experienced. That's where I started, and I was like, okay, well, I guess just the Florida Keys. And I didn't realize the amount of corals and coral reefs that there are here. Of course, our shallow water corals, but also our deep water corals.
Mhm.
It's expansive. It's amazing. And I think a lot of people, when they think about the Gulf, they think, oh, there's just, the Mississippi drains there. There's a dead zone. There's a lot of oil and gas. They're not really thinking about how vibrant and productive this beautiful ecosystem is because we've only seen it from one lens.
Right.
And
Largely from the surface.
the service, yeah, like how is it serving to
Yeah,
us? Right, exactly. So I kind of wanted just to take us on a little tour, if you guys are down with this,
let's
because
do it. Yeah.
of the Gulf and the coral reefs here. Of course, starting out with the Florida Keys. But you can see here all these red dots are all of the different coral reefs in the Gulf that we currently know of.
Mhm.
And I say that because there are likely more that haven't been documented. in between us and the US, Mexico, and also in Cuba. And what we know about the Florida Keys is that it has been the largest decline in reefs. Even from when I saw them 20 years ago until now, they are not doing very well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, last year they had surface temperature that was almost human body temperature, and it extended
Yeah.
down 300 feet into
Yeah.
so I mean, that's just, it's
Yeah.
almost unfathomable to have that kind of heat that going that deep.
Yeah. And I think another anecdote that they had with that, Liz, was that the corals were in a hot tub. It was like
Yeah.
101 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that was terrifying because at the time, actually, this is a video of that. One of our rescue operations is that in the nurseries in the Florida where we're trying, well, when folks are trying to grow out these corals and put them on the reef, they needed to evacuate them because the water was too warm,
Wow.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah.
way too warm.
Baking
So
them in
we
the oven.
So this was a different operation that I'm showing here, but what we did during that year, during the hot year, which I feel like every year is a hot year,
Hotter.
we
Yeah.
hotter and hotter, yeah. We worked with some of the partners in the Florida Keys who are doing these restoration activities, and we became a holding facility, or we became a genetic repository for those strands of corals that are now here in Texas as a way to save them in case they didn't make it in the wild.
Hmm.
And here this was an operation that we did last year, and we're bringing some of these corals from our restoration partners, Reef Renewal USA, and we're trying to use these different corals and understand which ones are going to do better and where, so we can help guide where their restoration activities occur. So they're putting these corals on reefs where the corals are actually going to do really well. Instead of just putting corals out randomly, we want to make sure it's science informed regarding their translation or their wherever they're relocating them.
And do you just rely on, divers going back to check in on them, or do you have any kind of real-time monitoring happening?
Out there, they do see them and go out to the trees that they're working on,
Mhm.
probably nearly twice a week, or if not more often. They're out there
Okay,
pretty
good.
often. And
Good.
then they also do visit their outplanting sites too. So we've just partnered with them where we can bring the corals back to Texas here. And I'm just going to kind of skip ahead a little bit more. And we can have them in our mesocosm facility here and do some experiments where we can determine these are the thresholds for these corals. This is an optimal place to put the coral. This is not an optimal place to put the coral.
So you can see how they do in like different temperature ranges and kind of different stressors that they might experience in the wild and pick the most resilient ones.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
we're trying to determine why. Like that's a big question right now in coral biology is why do some do well and why do some not do well? And if we can answer that question, it can help inform the restoration approaches that are happening and give us an idea of having, just putting corals out, hopefully not to perish, but hopefully to thrive in
Yeah.
those environments.
Well, to change everything, change the temperature, we're doing that.
Right.
Change the chemistry, and we're doing that too with the acidification and
Mhm.
also by removing the creatures that contribute to the chemistry of an area. Um, the fish, the little guys, all of it, it's a living system. It's not
Right.
just plain water with a few species. It's a complex system.
Yeah, I know. Just stop doing everything that we're doing, polluting the ocean and polluting the earth. It really is what
Yeah.
needs to happen
Yeah. And ourselves.
in
But
ourselves. Yes.
Yeah.
but doing exactly what you're doing, sort of drilling down and trying to figure out what makes it healthy, what makes it not healthy.
Right. And help guide
Getting
some of that. Yeah.
could not do this 50 years ago.
No. No, we just didn't have the knowledge or the infrastructure to support it.
It
The
wasn't a
capacity.
problem.
Or the
Right.
plan, it wasn't really a problem
And
back then.
there wasn't a problem to solve. Now we have
Yeah.
many
Although
problems to solve.
I think people, would see kind of occasional bleaching events here and there.
Yeah,
But I think that what's really devastating now is the intensity and the frequency. There's not like any time for systems to sort of like recover.
Right.
It,
Yeah, it's becoming more frequent, more often, and more severe. And that's what's really scary, that we're expecting to see some areas like the Florida Keys occur every year. And
Yeah,
it's just not enough time for the corals to recover from that.
right.
You're so fortunate to have seen healthy reefs before the loss.
Right.
You
Yeah, I feel
know,
very fortunate for that. Especially this reef system right here, the Flower Garden Banks, which is next on our stop across the Gulf. This photo down here at the bottom is me cheesing. Like my smile is as wide as it can be after my first dive at the Flower Garden Banks. Because it's such a healthy reef system, so many corals. The corals are bigger than minivans. I just was astonished of how beautiful this reef system was. I didn't know something like this existed, and
Yeah.
it's
And
so near and dear to
it's
my
really
heart
far
now.
offshore. Yeah, it's 100 miles offshore, so maybe it kind of benefits a bit from not being quite as close to the coast where you have such heavy impact of, agriculture and industry and you know plastics and so forth.
And it's deeper too.
Deeper, yeah.
Yeah, so even getting out there, I want to show the video of it out there. But you're right, it's 100 miles, so it's an overnight trip. Usually that occurs about 12 hours to get out there. You need to be on a live aboard because it's a hard go out there and dive real quick and come back.
No.
And you can't do that. We tried it. And it's the shallowest they come up is 65 feet, and they go, much deeper than that. But 65 feet is our shallowest that you'll see them at. And you can just see
Mhm.
beautiful colors. Obviously, it's a little darker there, so we had to add a lot of light to this. But it's just such an amazing system of corals that are very well taken care of. But also, like you said, Liz, it may also be because it's so far offshore, it's hard to access and they're deeper. So they have been, not as pressured as other coral reef systems. So this could be,
Mhm.
our safe haven of in the Gulf and actually this side of the world. This is one of the healthiest reef systems.
Really beautiful.
so it's logical that it should be part of the sanctuary system with at least some protection.
Right. Yeah, and the sanctuary does such a great job, and we have a really amazing working relationship with them to really conduct the long-term monitoring that happens there. It's the longest long-term monitoring that happens. That's me waving to everyone. Uh, and also we did just work with them. Actually, I'm gonna go to the next slide. A few years back, because they were redoing their management plan, and they wanted to make sure that they were integrating into their management plan, that they wanted to have all of the science that they needed. They wanted to see what the research gaps were so that they understood how to have adaptive management in these changing times. What does that look like? How can we work on that? And they brought in scientists, and I worked with them on this to really bring everyone to the table and have this conversation of how do you manage a coral reef system that is remote, hard to access, and also experiencing environmental change. Like, how do we work together to do that? And
Yeah,
that it was a really great thing that we did together. And now their management plan is open for comments too, based on all of this revision and whatnot.
that's great, especially really recognizing that there are gaps and then, figuring out how to address those. It's one of the really
Right.
fundamental things.
Well, those who are looking to the ocean for economic benefit, whether it's oil and gas or fishing, their voices tend to be heard and take priority over those who say, but wait, it's important to respect these systems intact, that they deliver to us benefits that we really need. It's part of our life support system. And that has value too. It's just that fish don't vote.
That's true.
We have
Neither
to
do
speak
coral.
for them. Yeah. Neither do
Yeah,
coral.
Yeah, we need, and because you can't see them, people, I think, generally, if asked, would say, yes, we need coral reefs because they're beautiful or they're they're whatever, they're part of our our world. But they are not aware of how much is being lost and how quickly they're being lost
Right.
and how urgent it is to show the connection between our health, our security, our existence, and maintaining what the ocean gives us for free. And realizing that we've got to take care of these places because it's easy to lose them, but
Yeah.
we need to somehow stand up and be a voice for those who don't have the voice.
Yeah, I agree. And it becomes really challenging too. And it even becomes more challenging when you start working across international borders.
Yes, 100%.
And one of the other things I like to mention, when we take our journey across the Gulf, is that there's these reefs in off of Mexico that we know very little about, and they're beautiful. And some of them are isolated reefs as well. For example, Alacranes Reef, where we are trying to document and understand the level of pressure that they might be experiencing, especially
Mhm.
from fishing pressure, even though
Yeah.
it is a natural protected area or an MPA. So that
Yeah, it's
becomes
amazing. It's amazing how many MPAs there are that still have quite a lot of fishing,
right.
um, both legal and illegal. That it's tough on the enforcement side, and we aren't really operating with a full knowledge of the impacts, even when we allow for so-called legal fishing.
Where is this?
Is that in Veracruz or?
This one is the Campeche Banks. This
Oh,
is
Campeche.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
this is the Cayos. This is either Cayos Arenas or the Triangulos. We've started doing expeditions there to document these amazing atolls. And we when we're out there, we're working with our Mexican colleagues to do as much documentation in such a short period of time as possible because it's so challenging to reach these systems as well. And we don't know a lot about them. There's not that much work that has been done there.
Well, it's great that there's collaboration happening though.
Yeah, we have to do everything together, right? I mean, it's just there's so much to do in so little time to do that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we're going out there again this year. We're going to go both to Alacranes and also the Cayos Arenas and Triangulos to continue our documentation while we're there to understand how these reefs might be changing over time.
So is this one of your reef scorecards?
Yeah, so yeah, here what we're doing is we've been taking photos of corals and looking at their color and also using an instrument to be able to measure the health of the coral. And we're
Mhm.
trying to correlate the color with the health of the coral. And we're trying to do this all over and get as much information as possible. You might see here, this is my one of the folks on my team, his name is Jack. He has the instrument, which costs a lot of money, like $40,000 in his hand. They all do.
Yeah.
That's nothing for the space program, though.
That's true. For the
No, we
choral
need to see
program, it is.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah,
we need
sorry.
this part of the universe is really important too.
Right. Yeah, we're trying to get an idea of what the health is of these corals. And we're also trying to get an idea of the connectivity of these corals. Like
Mhm.
how are they all connected? What ways, who's feeding who, that kind of thing too. So we're really trying to understand that now as well. And
And
then,
migrate of animals like, I don't know, whales, turtles,
right,
fish.
yes. And then I was going to say, Sylvia, here, this might look familiar, the Veracruz reefs.
Yeah, there's Veracruz. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just there last year and I was in shock again because from the surface there's so much sediment. It's so cloudy and murky. You wouldn't expect these beautiful reefs to be hiding underneath them.
Yeah.
So I was just like, wow, this is amazing.
Oh, it's such a fantastic body of water.
It is, isn't it?
So glad you're diving in and
Yeah,
telling
and
the
I think
secrets.
I think that kind of just leads everything to like one thing is or one sentence I think that encapsulates the Gulf is it's one Gulf, it's one system. And
Mhm.
we cannot, and the ocean won't recognize barriers, and we shouldn't recognize barriers either.
No, I totally agree with that because we see that,
Yeah.
it's very easy for us to jump on a map and we draw a little border around this and but the fish don't know, how can they
Yeah.
know that this is the safe zone and this is the take zone and or that these animals that migrate huge distances, we've got to be able to kind of protect them across boundaries,
Yeah. Corridors.
corridors, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and they don't know that, and we need to work together to be able to do that. And like you mentioned earlier, with Harte, a major focus of ours is to build these bridges across the Gulf because we recognize you cannot just manage the United States side of the Gulf. We need to manage the entire Gulf, but we can't do it alone. We need to work with our partners in Mexico and Cuba to do that. So we've been working on making sure that we have shared methodology. So if we're doing things the same way, so we can compare that. In that regard, we do training and make sure that we're all counting things the same way and calling things the same thing. We're exchanging all of that information and that knowledge and really just trying to lift everyone up. How can we help each other? What kind of information do you need? What don't you know? What do you know? And how can we work together?
Yeah, and it's so, it's so important to create, you know, sort of, I don't know, work to find ways to create economic benefit from taking care of the place, whether
Right.
it's
Rather than taking from it.
than
take it
taking
back.
from it. But
Yeah.
Right.
there's so many jobs and opportunities for the kids coming up that they can go out and, like learn from you and others, like how do you restore the coral? How do you take care of it? How do you start upland and take care of the wetlands and the
Right.
marshes and so forth that help to contribute to the health of the coral?
Right. Yeah. And that's where, you started talking about MPA network. In, the unique capacity that we have at Harte is we have lawyers here. And I
Excellent.
have been talking with the lawyer. They're good lawyers, I promise. But we've been talking about this MPA network and understanding how things are defined in these different regions. And of course, we can draw lines and maps on a map of the Gulf, but it's important to think about how do we work together to understand marine protected areas, why they are working, why they aren't working, and have those conversations. So that's what we're moving towards in the future. Is there has been established a marine protected area network for the Gulf of Mexico. It's called Red Golfo. We're relaunching it to really start these conversations and talk about how do we work across these borders so that we make sure that these really unique reefs that we have here in the Gulf remain for those who come after us and
Yeah.
really share that information.
So Keisha, do you have pictures of your lab? I'm really impressed with what you're actually doing at Harte.
Oh, I just that video that I showed earlier.
The corals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Girls, yeah. And we're hoping to do like a virtual lab tour too, so that people can see it as well. Because we do have a lot of the corals from the Caribbean and the Gulf in our lab and in captivity that we're studying, and also some Pacific species. Right now we have 18 species of corals, and 7 of them are endangered to try to
Wow.
understand. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
And great for the students.
Amazing for the students to be able to work
Mhm.
with them and help us understand these beautiful creatures.
Yeah. I mean, looking at these big systems, we really have to have like that, not just Q1, Q2, 3, and 4, but kind
Right.
of that 7 generation view of what is this going to be like in future.
Yes.
Yeah, and I wanted to wrap things up here with the importance of understanding where we've come from and where we're going and how we stand on the shoulder of giants. And at heart, and for myself, Sylvia has been such a huge inspiration into sharing what we know about the ocean and then getting other people really excited about the ocean as well. Because if it wasn't for your book, Sylvia, Ed Harte would have never been inspired to create change, and he would have never established the Harte Research Institute. And I think
That's
that's
right.
something very unique that people like we can inspire people to do great things or to create change. And all it does is take one powerful voice like yours in order to do that.
Yeah. And it takes the financial champion to come
Right.
along and really say, what did he say to you? The doctor here wrote the book. I just wrote the check,
Well, oh, it's so much more than that.
I know, but
It's taken,
he just, was so offhand about it, but it was such a huge lift.
sometimes, things just come together. It's like the stars align. Eventually, perhaps it would have happened anyway, but the fact that somebody did something at a moment that coalesced and brought together different people
Mhm.
in a rare form. They call it the Harte model, where
Right.
in one place, you have these different areas of expertise focused on one big, beautiful body of water across several nations, and truly a microcosm of what we face around the world. People have to see that we share the systems that make our existence possible. Everything else stems from that.
Yeah,
Have to take care of, first of all, your life support system.
absolutely. Divers know that.
And astronauts know that.
Astronauts know it.
Right.
So,
Learn about it and then take care of it.
yeah.
And we haven't been doing a very good job of either one, but it's getting better. And bravo to you, Keisha, and your colleagues who are really snapping up this opportunity and making it really come alive.
Every which way.
Yeah, and the students.
I was going to say, and the students, and that, that's where I end is some word of hope here is that we have such an amazing generation of students that are so fascinated and so proactive and want to do something, want to create change. And just having them involved, I think, in experiencing, this, for example, here in the middle is just a replica of the flower gardens, but to be able to see that and experience something that's that life size and give them the skills to be able to go to see it and document it, it really changes their life, right? And it causes a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Everyone is impacted from that.
All right. We have a couple quick questions before our hour evaporates on us. Caroline is asking, how do you think we should communicate to the general population? How can we more effectively spread the word about the decline of corals?
Great question. So this is something that I often talk with my students about. So right now I teach a communicating science class for graduate students because the reality of it is us as scientists aren't taught how to communicate effectively. Like I mentioned, we usually just publish or do presentations, but to other academic audiences. So we need to know how to talk to people outside of our own inner circle. We need to learn how to talk to people who don't do what we do. And in order to do that, you need to talk at a level where people can understand you. And as soon as you say things or you have jargon that people do not understand, they immediately stop listening. So you
That's
have to
true.
have a common language that you talk to them about. And you can't start with bad news. People don't want more problems, right? They turn off too. You need to be able to connect with people and show them, hey, if we do something about
That's
coral,
right.
look how beautiful this system is. Come with me and experience it. If we don't do something about it now, we may lose it forever. You want to show that there's a benefit, that there's a reason to save something instead of
Yeah.
just talking negative all the time about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, people give up if they don't see reason for hope.
Right.
That's true. Okay, Kristen said that one of the best diving destinations she ever had was at Cabo Pulmo in the Sea of Cortez, where the fishermen there started a conservation effort about 25 years ago because they realized they need to take care of the place. Have you ever been there and do you know about that effort?
No, I have not been there, but I guess that's next on my dive list to go
Yeah,
there.
you've
And I
been there
think
quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I think that's what like when we see people who are taking care of their own resources in their own communities, we do see that there's that level of protection and responsibility, and those systems usually do much better. I mean, we see that in a lot of the island systems that if global impacts of global warming or ocean warming were not happening, these systems would be thriving because they are aware of how they take from the ocean and how they need to give back to the ocean. And
Yeah.
sometimes we have more of a disconnect in other cultures, especially when you're far from the ocean. It's hard to know how you benefit from the ocean and how you need to get back to the ocean.
With the technology we currently have, the wild animals don't stand a chance. We have the capacity to take every last whale
Right.
if we choose to, every last big
Tuna.
fish. I mean, we've already taken supposedly on the order of half of the life out of the sea since the middle of the 20th century. That's on my watch, and it's on yours too. We're still taking more than can be replenished by the natural processes. But knowing it is the key. If you don't know,
Right.
you can't care. And also having exactly what you're doing, you can show how you can bring restoration and really bring some of these creatures that are right on the edge of disappearing, if you treat them right and treat the system with respect, we really do have a chance.
Right.
They have a chance, so we have a chance.
Mhm.
Absolutely. We're at the top of the hour, but we have one really quick little question from Caroline. Can anyone go diving at the flower garden banks, or do you have to have a special permit?
And I was like, oh, this other video of the flower gardens. Anyone can go diving at the flower garden banks. We only have one dive charter that actually goes out into the flower gardens. And it's called the Texas Caribbean, or the Fling is what usually we call it.
Yep.
And amazing diving out there. Obviously, when you go out so far and the reefs are so deep, there could be a lot of weather that impacts these systems. So we usually see that there's some currents associated with diving here, mostly on your way down. But once you're at the reef about 65 feet deep, there that current is really minor, if at all. But yeah, the public can go. A lot of people don't even know about that, that you can go out there and
Yep.
see these reefs. And you just need, I think you just need your advanced water scuba certification to go, or maybe just open water.
Yep.
To be able to do that. And it's pretty affordable compared to going other places to see these beautiful reefs or
Yep. I
other
just want
beautiful
to
reefs.
be in good shape and be always aware of your surroundings as anywhere.
Right, of course. And
Yeah.
follow your guides.
Yes.
It's not quite the high seas. It's only 100 miles, not 200 miles,
That's right.
but it's pretty far out there.
It is very
Yeah,
far out there.
it's
And
halfway to the high seas.
Halfway to the high seas. That's very good.
and it's really beautiful, and it certainly is worth protecting.
All right. Well, before we close today, we want to say thank you to Keisha and our producer, the Ocean Elders, and everyone out there in the diving community that continues to show up and participate in our shows. Thank you so much. We are incredibly grateful.
We'll get you back.
Yes, water connects us all. We will be back in May, and until then, remain curious, spend some time in nature, and take care of the ocean.
As if your life depends on it, because
It does.
it does.
It does. We'll see you next time. Thank you again.
Oh, Keisha, more to come.
Yes.